What's going on, people? Welcome back to another Get It Bucket podcast with me, your host, Chris LeBron. And as always, I am joined by my guy, Kev. What's going on, brother?
Life is good, man. It's the summertime. Basketball's booming. I can't complain, man. Everything is good. We just keep it pushing, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, bro. Just getting ready for this next chapter of life and all that. Like you said, it never stops. We got a good one for you guys today. We're gonna get into everything Nike EYBL. A lot going on, and just how it's kind of gone mainstream now. For guys like us, we've been knowing about this. We know some of the hoopers, teams, and all that, but it seems like it's getting more mainstream. So we're gonna get into all that. We're gonna get some players that we feel like you guys need to know, and all that stuff, and just get around. Summer League is in full effect right now. Obviously, Wembanyama Mania, is going wild. But we talk about some of the, some of the rookies and all that we like, and then their early starts and all that good stuff. Coach LeBron, we're gonna get into all that good stuff and all that. But let's start off with the circuit and all that. Obviously, it's a Nike EYBL There's Peach Jam and all that for people who don't know, and people don't know they have, I think what it started off, they have 4 different sessions, right? And we went over especially in the beginning and all that. But this is the big one. Peach Jam is the big, event and all that where some of the best hoopers, 15, 16, 17, all that come together, and we get to see a lot of talent and all that. So let's get right into it. Obviously, the big names and all that we know, Cooper Flag and Boozer and all that. But there's so much talent, man, Kev. I mean, the talent is endless. Like, I tell people this a lot when they're like, casual hoop fans that I know, they're like, yo, you're into all this. Like, what's the talent like coming up? Like, we all know about who's in the league now, the youngins in the league. I was like, come on. I was like, we got a lot. We got a lot coming up, and if you're watching, they got an NBA, and we just talking about this, how the evolution of this. Before it was pretty hard to try to find these, and then for a lot of people it's hard, but now it seems like it's going mainstream, which I like a lot. Right now, we've seen the Boozers, the 2 Bruiser twins, about playing right now on the NBA app. And we're getting the alerts, so people are like, "Oh, look," they're texting me like, "Yo, this kid is nice," and all that. So, how do you feel about the evolution of these tournaments and all that, Nike EYBL, especially that, because that is the big tournament? There's other tournament, there's Adidas tournament going on, which have a lot of big time hoopers that aren't at Nike EYBL. But just talk to me how the evolution of Nike EYBL.
It's a great thing, man, because it's been going on for, as you said, a long time now. I think it's been going on since, I want to say, like the late 90s, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And I seen a number, I forget the exact number, but I believe it was like more than 60% of current NBA players once upon a time played.
I think Fanta just said 70%, which is a crazy number, which is crazy to think that 70% of the league, this is where they start.
So essentially, if you play in the EYBL, I'm not going to say you're guaranteed to play in the NBA, but you do have a great shot at playing high major, mid major, or even low major Division I basketball and getting your school completely paid for, right? And the opportunity is great. I know you touched on Coach LeBron, you got Coach Bradley Beal, you got Coach Russell Westbrook.
Mm-hmm.
It's all the resources out
there. Coach Rondo, assistant Coach Rondo.
You're seeing the evolution of kids. You just mentioned Cam Boozer. You're seeing the evolution of former NBA players' kids. You got Cam Boozer, Hayden Boozer, Jermaine O'Neal Jr. You got so many different players that
Jason Richardson's kid.
I was gonna talk about him later. We're gonna talk about him later, but it's so much talent. Me personally, just like my love for the college game, it goes to the high school game a little bit, just because, like you just mentioned, I want to see the future of the game. I want to see where the game is headed, especially because, as we ended last episode, everybody's tripping about how the game's so international. Well, in America, don't get it twisted. We still have talent. There's still plenty of talent up and coming. It might look a little scarce because it's not LeBron, Kobe, and KD like it was once upon a time, and D Wade, but trust and believe that talent is never something that we're lacking in, and the EYBL just shows it. To me, it's literally March Madness for the Nike circuit. You know what I'm saying? It's where all the top talent all the winning teams throughout the course of the 4 sessions come to play, they come to compete, and you try and win Peach Jam. You win Peach Jam, you can make your case that you're the best AAU team in the entire country that year, because that's automatic. That's pretty much at the end of the day ultimately what it is. And it is some good, great programs on Adidas and Under Armour and definitely independent circuits too. But UIBL, if I'm being honest, most kids just flock to the UIBL. If I'm just keeping it a bean.
It's like you said, it's the NBA. It's, you know, we're like there's other leagues around the world that are really good leagues, right? And you just mentioned there's Under Armour. I know there's something going on in Atlantic City right now. It's a big event going on. That got a lot of top, you know, a lot of 3 stars, you know, guys like that. Under Armour, I think their stuff is about to start, you know, soon. And all like I said, Adidas camp is going on, but Nike EYBL it is. But another thing I want to talk, and I think I saw you tweet this out, like as far as like you know, we talk about AAU, you know, culture and all that, and how it kind of has a derogatory, you know, feeling to her. Whenever someone says that, it's always nastiness, right? And I don't know, I don't get that feeling, you know, around this. Like it's kind of feel positive. It's good basketball too. Like it's not a lot of the like people just like assume it's like guys just chucking up 3-pointers and all that. Like I'm seeing fundamental basketball. Like, yeah, I mean, we also got to remember these are kids. Like, so like it's never going to look pretty. So like I think that's another like misconception. You know, when people bring up AAU culture, like you're teaching 15, 16, 17-year-old kids that are still learning how to play the game and all that. But, you know, how do you feel about, because I've watched a lot of, I'm just like you, I've watched a lot, and that, you know, maybe in past, maybe that was the case, but it feels like there's a lot better structure. In my opinion, there's a way better structure, and it just feels like it's actually good basketball. Like I've watched the last few days, there's been some competitive, some really good games, and kids going at, and like you said, you know, kids want this. They want to be the kings of Pete. You want that, you know. So I feel like, you know, that AAU thing is, you know, maybe there's some truth to it in some cases and in some teams and all that, and some, but I feel like this has gone pretty smooth in my opinion.
And I agree, and I think, as you mentioned, when people mention AAU, they automatically associate it with the negatives that come with it. Like, yes, it's some very selfish, narcissistic parents. It's some self-centered coaches. But I'm not gonna say that's kind of everything, but it's kind of life. You know what I'm saying? It's pros and cons to everything. And when it comes to AAU, it's great coaching, it's great players, it's great kids, it's great people associated with that. And I think people try to overlook that and undervalue that because of all the grimy things that take place. Like, yes, when it comes to rankings, I don't care about them that much. It is a lot of politics in them. When it comes to certain individuals trying to get into these kids' camps to figure out their recruitments and stuff like that, it's some very snaky, shady like tendencies, right? I don't agree with a lot of that stuff, but don't let that outvalue and overweigh the good things that take place in these things. It's great coaching out there. It's great kids out there. As again, I got to say it again, like it's great parents out there. It's people that are in it for the right reasons. That's try to ultimately at the end of the day to get a free scholarship to have your tuition in school paid for, right? And eventually, you know, for certain kids, try and get to the NBA. So we gotta, as much as we focus on the negatives, we have to look at the bright side of things, and it's a lot of good things that come with the game. And again, like when you're watching the future of the game, I'm watching sets. I'm seeing certain teams run sets that a lot of college kids aren't doing. You know what I'm saying? Aren't running. You know? You're seeing a great point on that tweet that you mentioned by mine. It was a dude that commented. He said that because high school coaches are allowed to coach on the EYBL now, it makes up for better structure. And I think that's a great point. And so you're seeing high level sets, you're seeing horn sets, you're seeing all these different dribble handoffs and things that take place in the NBA. And, you know, it is some teams that still run a lot of isolation ball, but those teams don't have that much success, right? It looks good, you know, throughout certain parts of the regular season, but just like in the playoffs, Peach Jam for them right now, it fizzles out, right? So good basketball is everywhere, man. That's why I hate when people say, oh, the NBA is over. We ain't got no basketball to watch. It's always basketball to watch, whether it's the WNBA, the EYBL, Under Armour, Adidas, 3SSB. Like, basketball is literally on all the time. You got the Olympic basketball. You got overseas, European.
Under 19.
it never ceases to amaze me. So when it comes to like the EYBL and things like that, man, it's high level basketball, and it's the reason that throughout the back end of the week you see Coach K once upon a time always there. You see John Calipari there. You see Tony Bennett there. You see Tom Izzo there. You see Nate Oates there. You see Eric Musselman there. All the top coaches flock and crowd there for a weekend and go watch the top talent in the country. And that's just what the Peach Jam has been for, I think all my lifetime.
Yep. And like you said, like now you got more high school coaches coaching, right? Usually not the case like that. And like I said, what do high school coaches love most? They love structure. They love structure, and we're definitely seeing it. And it's cool to also see, like, you know, LeBron's coaching and Westbrook's coaching and an NBA player, you know, Rondo, you know, all these guys, Beal, all these guys coaching and all that. Because, you know, this matters. This is the stage for high school basketball. You know, you can go from getting low tier D1s, you know, offers to being boom, now you're a top 20 player. You know, I remember hearing stories even when I was in high school, like hearing about T-Mac, you know, and this is the 90s and all that, like being an unknown and then going to the Adidas camp and comes out and he's the number one player in the country. You know, you hear all these stories and all that. And, you know, for a lot of these kids, they're going to be soaring and all that. So as we talk about the Peach Jam, you know, like we mentioned before, there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of talent here, Kev. There's a lot of kids that are, you know, we've known about, and there's a lot of kids that are like, oh, I need to be watching more of him, you know, and all. And that's why I love this, you know, structure, because now it's like, oh, you know, and for I'm sure, and I know you're like an encyclopedia. You know, you're probably one of the smartest, you know, hoop heads that I know, and you're probably like, oh, I didn't know about this guy, you know, and you definitely got to watch more of him and all that. But who are some standouts from Peach Jam that have stood out for you? Whether they're 5-star, it doesn't matter the star ranking, but who has stood out to you most, you know, at the Peach Jam?
I mean, real quickly, I'll say definitely Dylan Harper. That's obvious. You know, we touched on him.
That's 2024 best play. He's you know,
number one ranked player in the class 2024. Rutgers and Duke are his top two, essentially. Like, I can't say enough about him. New Jersey product, Don Bosco prep. Like, it's a dog. He just wins. Lefty, gets downhill whenever he wants to, can shoot, got the post game, can fade away, gets everybody involved. Good defender, makes big time plays. That's obvious, right? He's the number one player in his class. Another one is AJ DeBanster. Originally from Massachusetts. He actually just transferred from his previous high school. He's going to go to Prolific Prep up there in Napa, California, which is the same high school that Jalen Green went to. Josh, why am I blank on his name? He played for the Phoenix Suns and the Grizzlies.
Josh Jackson.
Gary Trent went there. A couple other guys went there. So he'll be up there with Tyron Stokes, another big-time player. They're both in the class of 2026, which means they'll be sophomores this upcoming year. And trust and believe, those guys are the truth, right? You know, AJ, he's been super impressive. He's averaged almost 28 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 2 assists, and damn near 2 blocks per game. Agile as I don't know what. Lanky, he's built like a spider. It takes him probably 3 dribbles max to get from one end of the court to the other end of the court.
It's special.
Super athletic.
ESPN did a top 25 players regardless of class. So 2024, 2025, 2026, and they had AJ third. They had Coop and Boozer 1, 2, but they had AJ third, which shows, I mean, this kid is a sophomore in high school, and people think that, you know, in 2020, you know, in a few years that this kid could be a number one pick, and he's already, you know, like you said, he 27 one game, and I mean he's showing out so far.
He's just special. Like, honestly, Randolph Childress said it on the broadcast, but I truly agree with him. I think he's the best player in America right now at the high school level. I truly and firmly believe that. He's playing for Expressions Elite. His big bro, may he rest in peace, was Terrence Clark. He honors him a lot in a whole bunch of different ways. So shout out to T. Clark as always. But that's definitely one. Exactly. Another one you mentioned earlier, Jason Richardson's son. His name is actually Jason Richardson the second.
It's Jace, right? It's Jace, right? There you go. Yeah, Jace.
But his real name is Jason Richardson II. But man, it's crazy because I actually watched him a few years ago, and I wasn't a fan of his game like that. But recently, he's currently at Bishop Gorman, which is probably the premier high school in Vegas, probably the entire state of Nevada. Lefty, just an overall big-time playmaker. And the way that he played this week was sensational. He played for Paul George Elite, which is based out of Cali, but again, he's in Vegas right now. His younger brother, too, is actually also really good. His name is Jackson Richardson in the class of 2026 as well, so he'll be up and coming. He's much taller. I think he's about 6'6", pushing 6'7". But Jace, again, when I tell y'all, I was not a fan of his game the first time I seen it, but the way that he played this week, he looks much more refined. I think he was coming off of surgery too. He had like a major injury not too long ago that he was recovering from. Just a lefty, overall playmaker. He took over multiple games. I watched his game against Boo Williams. I watched his game against the family. He took over down the stretch of both those games. He gets to a spot. His arms are long as I don't know what. He's literally just a lanky kid, and he's special. Michigan State is firmly in his recruitment alongside Arkansas, Cincinnati, San Diego State, amongst others. It seems like as of right now that Alabama, Arkansas, Cincinnati, and Michigan State are like the top four. I think he dropped the top 8, but Jace Richardson, man, be on the lookout for him. He dropped in the rankings because of the injury, but he is easily one of the best point guards in the class of 2024, no doubt about it in my mind. A couple other names. Jason Crow Jr., he's from out here in California. His pops is actually, shout out to Inglewood, the city of champions. His pops actually from there, went to American University and played at Cal State Northridge, but he actually plays for Russell Westbrook's team, Why Not 16. And that's another guy that you mentioned, Bron. Russell Westbrook is really involved with his team, Why Not program.
Super involved.
Year in and year out. But Jason Crow Jr., man, this dude was the best freshman in the state of California this past season. He currently goes to Linwood High School. I think he averaged like 30-plus points per game as a freshman, which is insane. Lefty, just can get to step backs. You know, he loves the pull-up threes in transition. Can get to the rack. He got the floater game, good touch around the rim. He's only going to get better and better and better. The offers, not too many right now, but best believe is going to start piling up as he gets older and closer to his senior year. So, and the last one is actually a kid who's from, I believe he's originally from Ohio. He's committed to Ohio State, plays for Vegas Elite, and he actually played with Jace Richardson this past year at Bishop Gorman and goes by the name of John Mobley Jr. His nickname is Junie Mobley. A lot of people kind of call him the Steph Curry of high school basketball, which I'll say that's a fair statement because this dude's jumper is automatic. And if you're Chris Holtman, you should be ecstatic that you got this kid to commit early because after this week, I guarantee you schools like Kentucky would have came calling. Duke Blue Devils probably would have came calling. Like his jumper is automatic. If he gets his feet set and he's in a good position to shoot the ball, 99.9% chance the ball is going to go in. Like it's an effortless release. He gets to his spots because he can stretch the floor like that. Defenses have to pressure him. And if you pressure him, he can go right by you, get to the rack and finish with either hand. Floater game is there. He got the 2-foot jump stop. Like he just plays super under control. You can play him as a point guard or a shooting guard. Yeah, man, he's just super skilled. And actually, this is the last one, my bad. Jeremiah Fears, younger brother of Jeremy Fears, also from Joliet, Illinois, in the class of 2025, one of the best point guards in that class, the rising junior class. This kid, man, he actually just transferred from Joliet West, where he played with Jeremy this past year as a sophomore. He's going to Arizona Compass down there, which is a premier school down there in Arizona. When I tell y'all he's like that, he never gets sped up. You can't slow him down. You can score from all 3 levels. You have to play him honestly. Major playmaker when it comes to just dropping dimes. So I was very impressed with him. I think he's only going to get better and better and better. So those are just a few names that really stood out to me. But man, it's, as you know, it's so much talent there that I could go on for days. But those guys specifically stuck out to me a lot this past week.
Yeah, and those are a lot of good names and names that I'm definitely jotting down right now just to keep an eye on them. But I want to give there's some names that I'm gonna give a New York flavor to it. There's some guys from New York that and we've mentioned this before. Like there was a point I felt like in New York where just like I felt like the talent wasn't there and all that, and I felt like the come up has definitely been there. And then there's some guys and in particular the big Steven Solano. He played in the under 16, under 17 for the Dominican Republic. That's when I first found out about him and all that. Some people put me on to him, watched him in there. He's going to Cardinal Hayes, big time school. big time. So that they're one of the premier schools in New York City. Just a dominant program. He's playing for Expressions, and he's kind of struggling a little bit, just trying to get his feel and all that. But he's 7 foot, and in high school he's blocking everything. And in the last, he only averaged like a block a game or all that. But the last game he had I think he had 3-4 blocks and looked more confident and all that. So I feel like he's a name that's just going to keep rising because of his size alone. You're going to look at him and be like, I could work with him, and his offense needs some work, but defensively, I feel like he can definitely make an impact for a team, right away. Doesn't have a lot of crazy offers right now. I know St. John's might be in it on him and all that, but kids from, I think he came from DR, then went to VA, then came to the Bronx and all that. So that's a big, he's getting more confident. He's someone that needs to get put, and he's getting pushed. I know that one of the coaches that works with him at Cardinal he works with him relentlessly and say he's a hard worker and all that. So he's someone that needs to get his confidence going. Once his confidence going, he's definitely improving and all that. Dwayne Pierce, he's going to Iowa State. Hasn't shot the ball well and all that, but I still feel like he's someone that you need to know more. People need to know about, and I think he's gonna do well at Iowa State. Strong build and all, 6'6" and all that. Plays at Christ the King. People, if you know Christ the King, one of the premier programs, Catholic schools in New York. They got a lot of talent. They're rich, and that's where what's homie's name? Alvarado went there. Where he did, and then Lamar Odom. Yeah, they've had, who's the other dude?
Tyson Walker went there actually. Too.
Yeah. I'm blanking on his name. He went to St. John's.
Champagne or not the Champagne?
No, not Champagne. It's gonna bother me the name, but they've had a rich history in the basketball world and all that, and they've Kyan was there for a little bit. Now he's gonna be at Long Island Lutheran, and Long Island. I mean, I could do a whole show about them because they got a squad. They got an absolute squad and all that. But he's a name. He's like I said, the shooting wasn't great. But I feel like took good shots and all that. The Rens got a squad too, so it's hard to get and all that. But he's another one. Preston Fowler, that's another one. I don't think he had any offers or any big offers, but he showed out yesterday, especially. Like he looked like a stud. Playing for New Heights. I know New Heights hasn't had. They're probably one of the struggling New York AAU programs, but he showed out for sure and all that, and then played a hell of a game and all that. So he's someone that's going to be rising up. But and then we have Boogie Flam. We all know about Boogie, and all that. He played the Archbishop of Stepniak and all that, and we know he's a stud and all that, and all that. But those are just some names from New York that I feel like people need to know about. I feel like there's more names I'm forgetting out, but just some names in New York that people need to know about, especially the Solano kid, because somebody gets into him and figures him out, they might get them. That could be a first round pick in a few years. I'm not even he has the talent and all that. I've wrote about him, a few times for Prep Hoops. He's definitely someone that is definitely going to be on the rise, and if somebody works with him, they're gonna get themselves a hell of a big and all that. But yeah, this is so we could probably go for hours because there's an endless amount of kids that are just absolutely just showing out and all that. Like I said, right now we're watching this is Westbrook's team, right? Westbrook's team playing and all that, and against the Boozer kids and all that. How do you feel about Cam Boozer and all that? Obviously he's whether him and Flag, the 1A, 1B, 1-2, wherever, regardless, they're the top two players. But Boozer and all that. Obviously his pops played at the Blue Devil, and then went to the league and had a really good career and all that, multiple time All-Star and all that. Did his thing and all that. But let's talk about the Boozer twins because I feel like his brother gets slept on, a lot. So just talk to me about them.
Yeah, man. I'll start with Cam and I'll get to Caden. Cam he's 6'8", 6'9", super skilled. Kind of reminds me of his pops a little bit. He's not as explosive, but he can dunk on you, if he wants to. But very skilled for his age. He has the proper footwork. He plays super under control. He gets to his spots. rebounds his butt off, just plays super hard, and it's the reason why he's probably the best player in the class of 2025. So, I mean, I think it's evident, right? You can make a case between him, Cooper Flag and Koa Pete, in my opinion, but
Cole
like those,
too.
those three, like
Cole Pete's in the Adidas, so there's probably people. I know I've had some people hit me up like, "Wow, where is like?" They'll look at the rankings and be like, "Why isn't like certain guys there?" And I'm like, "Well, they're Adidas," and like, people are like, "Why can't they just do?" And that's another thing is like, we're not all seeing all like obviously Nike probably has the most guys in there, but like we're not seeing like people want to talk about VJ and all that, like the kid from Long Island and Pete and all that. There's a lot of dudes that we're not seeing, I know, but just if people are wondering like why aren't those guys there, it's just obviously they're in the Adidas side. So
yeah, and Cam, he's been dominant pretty much since he walked into high school. He already has a state championship. He plays down there again with his brother down there in Columbus.
Gatorade Player of the Year already.
Nasty. They're down there in the Miami area, so they just got a lot of game. And Caden, again, he doesn't get the same amount of love as his brother Cam, just because he's probably about 6'3", 6'4". Cam is like 6'8", 6'9".
Mm-hmm.
Caden, he knows his role. He never plays out of position. You never see him take bad shots. He's always limiting turnovers, high-level playmaker. He makes life a lot easier for his brother. Definitely a high major point guard, can get a bucket, no pun intended. But he got game. Again, he doesn't get the love that he probably should, but people recognize him. And I think they're more than likely going to be a package duo to your Duke Blue Devils down the line. But that's the conversation for another day. But both them guys are just good. C. Boo's done a great job of developing them, not just as basketball players, but especially just as human beings. I watched a couple of their interviews, well-spoken. It's like they just, them kids that just grow up in the NBA lifestyle, just seems like they're just built for it, right? It's genetically just passed down to them, obviously.
And they got that free game. They get that free knowledge.
Literally. So, they are – the hype, I'm not a fan of this because I don't like hype like that, but like they're worth it, right? We could talk about hype, but like the hype with them is very real and it makes sense. Like they've earned that, right? So I don't like comparing them to, all-time players or anything like that because that's unfair to that all-time player and them as the player. But both those guys, they're special. They ran through E15, U15 last year at the EYBL. They've pretty much been doing the same thing for the most part in the 16s. And I think next year 17s, they'll do a little bit of the same thing.
You brought up hype. We didn't expect to get into that, but let's talk about hype because Boozer and Flag already are getting hype, and they're still 2 years away, right? They're still 2 years away. We still got a few more years before them, and especially with Flag, and we talked about this before the show a lot about. I feel like Flag might not to the extent of Wemby. I feel because Wemby is, I mean. We're talking about Britney Spears. He has to apologize about something with Britney Spears. like that's the amount of hype he's getting. Like and his first game like it's a summer league game and people are criticizing his shot and he can't do this already. It's like come on now. But hype. And I don't like hype either. I can't stand it. I feel especially when we think Cam's gonna be LeBron. Already hearing that, or Flag's going to be Larry Bird. That's we're going to hear that. So with these two, and obviously, I hate that we disrespect the next class. The 2020. The this come up class, and because people think it's kind of weak and all that, so we just skip to 2025 and all. Like people just do that, but hype. We're going to get a lot of hype with these two. People are going to put them against each other 1-2, especially if Flag doesn't. Now, this all depends on if Flag reclassifies because there is a big thing, and he said from interviews I've heard and read that he hasn't really thought about it. It's a possibility. And you've mentioned, and we've talked about this on previous shows with reclassification. We have a lot of evidence so far that sometimes it doesn't always work. And we had two guys who reclassified who in this draft who were supposed to be, top 5 picks that went in the second round. So and then in past it hasn't always worked and all that, but and we're big on like stay the course and all that. But the hype is going to be real, especially if Flag decides to classify for 24, because that means he's going to be coming to the league soon and all that. So the hype, I don't like it. I think it's crazy. I think it's unfair for a lot of kids. Like, I feel bad for Wemby. I feel bad for him because it's like not only do you have to deal with the hype, it's like you're new to the country, bro. Like and all that. Now, Flag and Booze don't have to deal because they've been, especially Boozer, because his pops played in the league and he's been trained properly. Like I said, he's interviewed well. But the hype. Talk to me about the hype with those two, especially because we're already hearing about them, being the number one pick, 1, 2. Are they gonna go join Duke? All this. It's one gonna go there, or is this? Is it a package? The hype. Talk to me about that because the hype is going to intensify. In a few years.
It comes down to two things. It comes down to, first of all, the people that cover the game, the journalists, right?
Yeah.
It was a time back kind of when I was coming up in high school. I graduated 2017, so like my class was DeAndre Ayton, MPJ, Trey Young, Colin.
You just made me feel old, bro. I was 07, so 07 was KD. Oh no, 07 was Beasley. That was his high school year, right? Beasley, because he came in 08. Yeah, D Rose. So I got those.
Tyreek Evans, yeah.
Tyreek Evans, yeah.
With that being said, I said it to say like MPJ, for instance, was in that class, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was comparing him to Kevin Durant. Everybody. And it was a time everybody they were comparing Kevin Knox to Kevin Durant. They were comparing all these guys to Kevin Durant. And I'm just like, to me, not only is it unfair to that player because you're comparing him to an all-time great, a legendary player, but it shows me that you don't really value these all-time greats, right? Because if you're comparing KD to these guys, it's like you don't really understand just how great of a player KD is. And it's unfair for you to also put that pressure on a 15, 16, 17-year-old like Imani Bates. Imani Bates was getting compared to KD when he was 14 years of age. Out of middle school, he was getting compared to Kevin Durant. And I'm just like, for us to throw that pressure on him is super unfair. And I'm hoping everything works out with him. Obviously got drafted by the Cavs in the second round. So it's up to us to just be better. I can understand if you're comparing them and say, oh, they have these similarities. But when you're saying, oh, he's going to be the next Kevin Durant, or oh, he's going to be the next Paul George, or oh, he's going to be the next Kawhi Leonard, you're doing the game of basketball a disservice. And it's time that we stop doing that. And we got to stop pushing things to the extreme and putting so much emphasis on this. You can't hyperbolize things like this because you're setting these kids up for failure in the long run.
You bring them all the way up just to because they did it with Zion. Look what Zion. They brought he's gonna break everything. Zion, watch all this, and now that he had a couple hiccups and he hasn't played a lot of games, they're tearing him down. It's like, oh, we knew this was that could happen with Zion and all that. Like I said, the Monty too. We seen it, and it's a dirty game. It's a dirty game.
And that's my biggest issue is exactly what you said. These people build these dudes up just to tear them down. That's why I try to get people to cool down on your boy Dariq Whitehead because, yes, he is an amazing player. I don't want to take anything away from him. But people were automatically comparing him to NBA All-Stars, and I'm like, that's setting him up for failure. That's literally putting him on a pedestal just to rip him down off that. And that does something to a kid's mental, right? These dudes aren't just prospects and recruits, and these kids are real-life human beings too, people. Like,
kids, you just said they're kids. Just imagine us as just regular people, how we deal with emotions. Now you're a player, and listen, we're in the social media age. It's not like how I was when I was in high school where MySpace was barely a thing. It just got started. So we didn't have social media like that. So nowadays it's like, and it's just social media is just a part of life now. Like it's like we all go on Twitter on accident sometimes. You don't even want to go. It's just like, and you read, and especially if you're, a high level basketball player who has a little bit of a name, you might read stuff on you on accident just by, So it's just like it's like I said, it's a dirty game, and I don't like it at all. I don't like the way, especially these teenagers, and we see it, and we've talked about this, how Bronny, for instance, was getting criticized because he's not really an All-American. He's only there for his dad. And people just he's not that good and all that. And now they do it with Bryce because Bryce struggled in his last game. Shot I don't know to 20%, whatever. I was like, if you didn't, because everybody just went off, oh, Bryce is the one because he's going to be bigger and all that. Bryce is the one and all that. And then they saw him struggle and they're like, oh, he ain't that good. It's like, off a game? Off one game? Like, are we really going to do that? Like, it's always been, I've never liked the way the game has been covered. And who said this? Draymond. I don't know if you watched the Draymond, what he did with Paul George. He's like, I love basketball so much, but the job of basketball, because it's obviously more than just playing. It's like, I can't stand it. All that other nonsense, people trying to bring you up, trying to bring you down, and all that. Like, that's the tough part. It's like, if the, and I know it's not exciting. Like, if the media covered the way me and you would, it obviously be boring. But players would probably like that better if they was covered the way our circle of people who watch basketball would cover it, right? And we see this like in general with just like content creation, right? We make content, and there's sometimes I'm like, I know we got a better show. I own my podcast, is your podcast. You're like, I know my show's better, but because that person is loud and just being super extra is going to get more, and that's just the society we live in, right? It's just it's clicks and all that, and it's nasty how far we've gotten with that. But if you just let kids progress and stop treating them because they have a 5-star or 4-star and all that, and we just let them grow, because at the end of the day, Cam Boozer and whoever's the 300 best player, they're still 16 years old. So that 300 best player who might be Dame Lillard, that could be Dame Lillard for all we know. There's just progression and all that. We just got to let that. But it's not, how it is. And we'll talk about Summer League and how Victor Wembanyama is just like, and Brandon Miller are being, how they're being viewed and how crazy that is and all that. But it's a nasty game, Kev. Like, just the way the game. Sometimes I wish I can go back to when I was in high school. We didn't have that, because I feel for these kids, because they're gonna hear it, and it's just like, even if at the camps, right, I'm sure they're hearing it. Oh, this guy. Oh, you heard about this girl? And then it all went, and it's just it's a nasty game. It's a nasty game.
And that's my biggest thing to finish this off, is that we have to understand, again, these guys are kids, right? One day they can wake up and just be like, I don't even want to play basketball anymore. And us as fans, we have to be okay with that, because it's their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to respect that. If Cam Boozer were, I know it's not going to happen, but if Cam Boozer were to go to sleep tonight and wake up and be like, I'm done playing basketball, we have to respect him for that. We shouldn't be like, oh, what could this kid could have been, and he could have been the next great. No, like, you have to respect these kids' individuality, bro. Don't just limit them to basketball. They have lives outside of basketball. So, again, let them process it. A lot of these kids are going to get to college, like a lot of players already have, and understand, like, oh, yeah, I didn't really love this as much as I thought I did. That's life. You know what I'm saying? You have to figure out.
It's a big thing.
Like, things like that happen. And so, again, it's just like, we have to get back to realizing the human side of it. And we have to have some type of, not sympathy, but empathy, and put ourselves in their shoes sometimes and understand what they're coming from, what they're going through, and what they potentially have to get to where they want to be ultimately, and understand that it's life, dog. Again, a lot of these kids can wake up tomorrow. When I was 16, 15, I didn't know. I had a good idea of what I wanted to do, but I wasn't firm in my shoes knowing what I wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to do a whole bunch of different things, like I still do to this day. So It's just, man, don't put the weight of the world on these kids just because they're great basketball players. Again, I love watching it because I like to see the future of the game, but I'm not expecting them to carry the torch for the future of Team USA. I'm not expecting them to walk in and automatically be a first ballot Hall of Famer. It's just not fair to them. So give these kids time to develop and figure it out.
And you set yourself for disappointment if you say, all right, this is why I don't like, when doing drafts, I don't do comparisons. I know a lot of people do that and like, oh, this guy's a young, Michael Jordan and all that. It's like, I don't know if you ever saw this, but NBA Draft Net, that used to be my thing growing up. That was like the drafts, the main thing. Now we got a bunch of stuff, but they compared Deshaun Stevenson to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. I remember as a kid. Now you probably see it a lot more because that's like their one biggest like hiccup. Like they compared him to MJ. But what's funny is like they compared him to MJ, yet he was like the 20. They had him ranked in like the 20s. It's like, how do you have someone thinking? And I'm just like, you're setting that kid up for failure. Failure. You don't. And obviously, if this was nowadays, it would have been blown up and like people would be like, oh, he's not MJ and all that. And like you could have even back then like. Even like the tapes you would watch or like the magazines, Slam magazine, whatever, that I would order. You're like, all right, he's not Michael Jordan. So I'm like, you're setting this kid up for fail. And he came out of high school. I remember Deshaun Stevens. I think he was like a late first round pick or something like that by Utah. But you set kid up for failure. This is why I don't like comparisons. Like I don't Victor Wemby, he's gonna be Kevin Durant, Hakeem Olajuwon, and Tim Duncan. It's like, oh, are you crazy? Like, why? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing these comparisons? You're like, and we saw with the Wemby, and we talked about like if he's not Kevin Durant or if he's not Hakeem Olajuwon, he's a failure, or he didn't live with that. It's like, Hakeem Olajuwon might be a top 5 center of all time. Some people think he's the most skilled center of all time. Top 10 player, top 15. Kevin Durant is a 2-time world champion, MVP, might be the greatest scorer we've ever seen, pick up a basketball. And we're going to say if he's not Kevin Durant, that's a disappointment. If he is Kevin Durant, it is a disappointment. That's why I don't like comparisons. I don't like comparisons with high school kids, especially NBA. It sets people up because now you have the majority of people who make up Twitter, NBA Twitter, and all that are more likely casual fan who don't watch the game, like stuff like how we watch it, right? So if I tell you, hey, I think he's Kevin Durant, and he doesn't come off the gate, Summer League, you watch first Summer League game, and we could kind of just transition to that, then you're going to be disappointed. Like, oh, everyone told me ESPN told me a billion times this guy, because every ESPN I get their alert every 2 seconds about Victor Wembanyama. He walked down the street, He got out of his car. It's like you're setting dudes up for failure. And we could kind of talk about that because it also goes with, with Brandon Miller too. His first game struggled a little bit. I mean, it's human nature. It's your first game, right? Playing with new teammates and all that. He struggled. And I saw this on it. And this is why sometimes you just got to put your phone down, put it on the face, and just not even look at it. And just watch the game like normal people, right? Not go to Twitter. Oh, he missed his first five. Like he missed the air ball. It's like, people, are we not allowed to like figure things out? It's a summer league. Because I've seen Kevin Knox, for instance. I'm gonna go to Kevin. I don't want to crap on Kevin, but I saw him ball out in summer league. And guess where Kevin Knox is? On team number 5, and he's just 23 years old, and all that. So like, it's a go of the way. Like we just can't crap on Vic. And all these guys because they struggled their first game, and that transitions to the summer league and all that. Like it's just, it's like it's nasty. It's nasty. We were crapping on dudes after one game. We are crapping on dudes on one game, and all people are like, oh, this not Nick Smith ain't gonna work with this dude. Him and LaMelo is gonna be disaster, and all that. It's just like off of one game. We're going 1 or 2 games, summer league games. LaMelo's not playing with us, so we don't even know. And we know LaMelo's a high-level player. He just got a $260 million deal. He's an all-star. Yeah, he was hurt last year, but when LaMelo's right, I think Nisman could be solid. Him and Brandon Miller could be like, why are we writing them off? It's crazy. But we'll get it right into it, with all that. I know you want to talk about Brandon Miller and all that. So tell the people what you talk about with Brandon Miller and all this. People talking crazy already about him.
When it comes to summer league, as you just mentioned, it's pros and cons to it. At the end of the day, you're just trying to kind of get your feet wet into the NBA style of play, right? Before you get into training camp and then preseason and then the regular season, right? So you got to temper expectations. And all y'all out there that Prezi just mentioned that tweet they butts off during the games, just relax and enjoy the game. Like
play by play. It's like, oh, he sucks. And then like, with Brandon Miller, he had a couple nice shots where he took a dude off the dribble. It's like, oh, you want to take that tweet back? But you just said he can't take dudes off the. He's like, can we not tweet by tweet? I said no. There's things I can't stand with NBA. tweet by tweet, and then you try to retract. Oh, it's not. It was different. It's like, well, stop tweeting every 5 seconds. Like, just tweet by halftime tweet. I feel it. It's like I don't care. I don't need to watch you tweet 20 every two possessions. Like, come on.
First of all, again, with that being said, like, I'll say the Hornets Summer League team is garbage. If I'm just being honest, I hate to say it like that, but I'm just honest.
It's just a bunch of, and not that I'll let you go, but James Bouknight. I thought he was going to be some. I liked him. I thought maybe he'd be a Knick. I would have loved him in New York at the time. I was wrong, man. I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to be out of the league and all that, but Charlotte ain't gonna, because he first of all he ain't gonna be able to play his game in Charlotte anyway. So, and he's shown that he hasn't been able to shoot the ball efficiently. So, unless he learns how to be a corner 3-point shooter, he's gonna have to figure things out. And he's gonna get opportunity because he's a top 10 pick, top 11 pick. I think he's top 10, but he'll get an opportunity straight off that. But I don't know. He took some shots yesterday. I was like, oh, ouch.
You got to think, just the past couple of years, not to get too off track. I mean, they literally drafted players exactly like him between Bryce McGowan and this year with Nick.
That's another thing too. The situation, like when you got teams just drafting same, positions and all that, and it's just like, that's why the Hornets are where they're at. Let's keep it real.
So when it comes to Brandon Miller and Wemby and just overall overreactions, we got to settle down, man, because to me, as I was telling you before we got on here, I think I've said it on here before too, but I'm gonna say this again just for our audience to remember this. Like, when it comes to new players in the league, and when it comes to coaches, especially at the college level, I give them 3 years, right? If you can't get it right by your 3rd year, if you're not a solid rotational player in the NBA by your 3rd year, for most people, some guys it probably takes a little bit longer, but for the average case, if you can't get it right by your 3rd year, you're just not built for it. If you're a new college head coach like Rick Pitino or Ed Cooley at Georgetown, and you're not having your school successful by year 3, it's just not the job for you. I'm not saying that's going to happen for those guys because I obviously believe in both those situations, but those are just examples, right? Mm-hmm. So to me, like this past draft with your guy Paolo and Benedict Mathurin, they both had really good rookie years, but I'm not commenting on it yet just because I want to see what they look like trending towards their best basketball. They both look really well. Ben Mathurin came out the gate hot. And Paolo, it took him a little second, and then he picked up and he didn't look back. He looks like an all-star player for a majority of the season. Mm-hmm. But by year 3, you're going to see those guys more comfortable. You're going to see them at a better playing weight. You're going to see them like NBA basketball should be easy for them, right? And so I'm not necessarily saying you have to look at it from the lens that I'm telling you guys to look at it, but it's just to be fair to those players. Like,
no, you should though. That's the problem, is that not enough people who think they're hoop heads look at it that way. Like how we look at it. And I'm not saying we're like, oh, this savant, but like I've changed the way I've watched the game of basketball these last few years, doing a lot of content, creating and all that. Like I remember just listening to shows from my start. I'm like, that Chris doesn't watch the game like that anymore. Like, but I think if more people did, I think, there'd be better discussions and all that. But right now, there's not people who are looking at it that way. They just look at it, one way, and it's like, how do you look at it that way? It just, it's more people need to have open-minded, that thought process, like, age and all that, like, trying to going from playing just 30, 40 games a year to playing an 82 game schedule and back-to-backs and going against, one day you're going against, Kevin Durant one game, Paul George one next game, Julius Randle another game, that takes time as a youngin.
The best example, Steph Curry. If people were to have watched Steph Curry in his first few years, I guarantee you they would have given up on him. I guarantee you.
Well, he went to the perfect team too, because let's say he had been a Knick, right? Let's say they passed up on, or Timberwolves. Let's slander the Timberwolves because they actually had the picks to actually take him. He goes to Minnesota. Maybe he finally becomes Steph Curry, but we don't know. We actually don't know if he was Steph Curry, because what if they probably give up on him because of the injuries and all that. Let's say that, and he still has those injuries. They probably give up on him, trade him. He gets traded again because he's just a cycle. And then maybe we don't ever get to see Steph Curry. He just went to a perfect spot where they actually, they rocked with him. And they say, no, Monte, you're the one who's got to go. We believe in this kid. And I feel the same way with the Knicks. If he had to win the Knicks, I think because the way the Knicks were ran that time, hey, they better trade him after the third year. Like, oh, his ankles are shot. You know what? Let's go get whatever point guard we feel like is a superstar. That's when the Knicks were just trying to figure out. And they might have get traded. He might have been, you know what? He's in Denver right now because they would have traded him to get to get Carmelo. So like he went to a spot where they trusted their process. They like, okay, we know the injuries, but when he gets right, we're gonna retrain him, reprogram him. When he gets right, he's special. And guess what? Their patience allowed them to have 4 championships and have a dynasty right now.
And that's a part of it, bro. You have to have patience. The chances of a kid coming in at 19, 20 years old and just skyrocketing like Dame Lillard or Anthony Edwards, slim. It's a 1% thing.
No
right?
LeBrons. LeBrons are hard to come by.
Exactly. Especially with Wemby's case. I want to say this. It's much harder for big man to translate from a younger level to the NBA than it is for guards. Why? Because the NBA is a guard/wings game, with it being spaced out, 5 out, being able to get into gaps. To be a big, that's why you see, for instance, like a guy like James Wiseman. He had it terrible because he barely played at Memphis. He gets drafted to a team that has high expectations trying to win a championship. And now you're asking him to play in the most complex offense in the NBA. And on top of that, he's a big man.
He's a big man, and they're ready to win now, and your development isn't top priority, right? Exactly. And we see flashes in Detroit, right, where you're like, okay, all right, this is the Wiseman we've been waiting for. And like you said, bigs take a minute. This has been and it's not like the bigs back in the day where they went to college for 4 years and Tim Duncan's ready to go. He's all NBA first team. Exactly. That's not the cases anymore. And I wish more bigs would actually go that route because I think that's better for bigs. Not for guards, you could come in and you could kind of do your thing. You could average 18, 19 off the jump. Mm-hmm. But for bigs, you need that. And like we thought Wiseman, perfect situation. They need a big, they got the slower bigs and all that, but it wasn't. It actually was maybe the worst situation for him and all that because they were trying to win championships, they weren't focusing on development and all that. So for him, going to Detroit right now is a better situation.
And for instance, like your guy Wendell Carter Jr., he had a great year this year. I think this was probably the best season of his career so far. I think he's like 5-6 years in now. He's had a great season because it takes time where you have to figure it out. And you're seeing up and coming bigs like Jalen Duren is like a 1%er. Jalen Duren, he kind of came in and he kind of just had it, but he's also built like a monster.
He's built like a tank.
He's a different beast. But like for most instances, like Daniel Gafford, Jaren Jackson Jr., it takes a little bit of time, and that's okay because again, the game, especially nowadays, it's not catered for the big man. It's just not.
Marvin Bagley, look at Marvin Bagley, what he's going through. Like, he was. Like we talked about, like they made an AAU team for him. Like he reclassified, another instant reclassified. About he had a dominant freshman year and all that, and like took him a while. It took the game. They wound up shipping him out. And then in his situation is different because we're always going to be like, well, they passed up on Luka and all that. But you looked at some of his games last year with Detroit, kind of like with Wiseman. You're like, hey, when he's healthy, he's 19-10. He could give you 19-9 and all that. But it's all about where you go. It's real. But we all know how the league is. There's no patience in the league, and certain fan bases are impatient, and that allows front offices to make a lot of irrational moves, and that's what hurts a lot of these young kids. Is remember, you're getting a teenager, and now you're expecting him to carry the franchise. In what profession does a teenager have the keys to a Fortune 500, a multi-billion-dollar organization that's only in sports? Is it in basketball? Really, is the only thing where you have a 19-year-old. Now this is your team. Now carry us because we don't know what the hell we're doing, and you're a hope. It's just crazy. And then when they don't succeed right away, it's like, oh well, if Wemby doesn't have success in playoff or any type of success first year, people are going to be like, well, we should have known that he wasn't going to be successful. Same thing with Brandon Miller and all that. But it's wild. It's wild. We expect these kids to come in and and be the face. Like even look, listen, LeBron James didn't make the playoffs the first 2 years of his career, you know, and Carmelo Anthony made the playoff, and people are like, oh, is Carmelo the better player? And long term, obviously that wasn't the case. D Wade made but that doesn't happen all the time. You know, D Wade won a chip in his third year, you know, but he also was a 3-year player in college. So, and then Melo played a year and all that in college, but patience is not a virtue in the NBA, and that's the problem why a lot of these young kids flame out.
Exactly, and that's our biggest message. Just have patience, bro. It takes time. My favorite player is Jimmy Butler. It took him a minute to get it together, right?
Exactly.
And there's a whole bunch of different instances, right? Like again, guys don't just walk into the league. Like I just figured out last night, I forgot Dame averaged 20 points per game as a rookie. I did not know that.
Well, he's also a 4-year player.
Right.
So came in ready.
It takes time though. You know what I'm saying? Like those guys are 1%ers. Anthony Edwards is a special player. I knew we've been known he was special. He's a rare beast. Not everybody comes into the game like that, bro. Like you have to figure things out. You're still trying to put on weight. You're trying to figure out how to adapt to the NBA game. You're trying to figure out your scoring niches. You're trying to figure out your niche on your individual team, what the team needs from you. You're trying to figure out your coach. Exactly. You're trying to figure out how to distribute millions. Like
just being a human. Just think about it. All that you just said, all the stuff you have to worry about with your job, right? As a player. And that's still you're not even 21. You know, a lot of these kids aren't even 20 and can't even, they're trying to figure out how to be while all your other friends who are your age are going through that regular progression in life, you have everything's accelerated for you because you're an athlete now. You know, and I think that's the one thing that people tend to forget, put that aspect is just that human aspect. And that's the thing that, everyone's different, right? We all build differently. We all handle emotions differently. Like we don't know how people handle losing 10, 12 games in a row. You can go your whole high school career, 3 state championships, city championships, Peach did, you did all this, and then you go to the league, and now it's like, oh, we just lost 15 out of 17. We just lost 13 in a row. That could mess you up, and especially if that happens for 3-4 years. This is like Boogie Cousins, Beal, all these guys, great. We all they went through losing. Especially look at Cousins. Cousins is 25 and 15. He went through losing. That can mess you up, and he never even got to really get to a level where we can appreciate his greatness, because by the time he got there, that's when the injuries piled on. So it sucks, but it is what it is in sports now. Just expectations are crazy. We're gonna see Coop go through it. We're gonna see Booze go through it. We're seeing Vic go through it. He's gonna go through it. I saw him yesterday at the presser. He looked stressed already. Like, oh man, talking about Britney Spears. It's like, man. Bro, it's gonna be great. He's lucky he's in San Antonio at least. At least it's not New York. If it was New York, bro, ask Julius Randle and all that how it is to handle that, because that's a different monster and all that. But that's another episode of Get a Bucket, bro. Dope episode. Tell the people where they can find you, Kevo.
As always, it's at Kevo Mufasa 7 on Twitter and Instagram. I might make a Threads. I seen Threads is kind of booming out.
I did it. I didn't think I was gonna do it, but you know what? It's so easy. It really is. You just go on your Instagram, you click the thingy, and it just, you don't have to add another password. It just your IG, and it's like, all right, if you're gonna make it easy, all right, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll probably end up doing that, but as y'all can see, it's KEVOOMUFASA 7. Again, man, y'all enjoy y'all summer. Enjoy all the basketball, the free basketball that's going on right now.
Free
basketball. Go outside too, get some sunlight, and just enjoy yourself, man. Life is too short to be complaining and bitter and negative all the time, man. So keep it pushing. Always salute to all the ball. Salute to Prezi about to get his new job. So
yeah, it's gonna be a hot boy summer. About to meet up with Mo finally, so that's gonna be dope. We're gonna be live. We're gonna try to do a podcast live, so make sure to check that. Like I said, Off the Ball Pod. Follow me on Twitter. Like I said, talking all things basketball. Like I said, we got NIKE EYBL, we got the Adidas camps, we got Under Armour camps coming up. This basketball summer league, obviously. You got WNBA, we got the Liberty ball. I know that crapped on them after the first game, but you know what? That's me just being emotional. New Yorker, but Liberty all hooping, a lot of good, the Aces only got one loss, a lot of good basketball going on, so check out your local, you know, your local areas. I'm sure they got leagues going on. Check out, you know, basketball is a 24/7, 365 and all that. So, but on that note, that's Kev. I'm Chris. Another Get It Bucket podcast in the books. Make sure to follow me off the ball pod, Kev Mufasa, offtheballnetwork.com for all the great articles and all that. But on that, be well, be safe, take care. Peace out.